Hello, 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 my beautiful people. This is the part two of why I homeschool. If you haven't already seen the video, the part one on why I homeschool, or the video on my perspective of parenting and momming, especially, please go back and see those. But I mentioned in part one, for the people who have not seen it, I mentioned in part one that I am very rigorous with the academic portion, and not just everything, but not just the academic portion, but with everything. Very rigorous with their education. I don't take school teaching them lightly. In my perspective, teaching them is one of the components of protecting them. Teaching them, praying over them, are just components of protecting them. And to me, protecting my children is my number one duty, because if I don't protect my children, I have no one to provide for, right? So teaching them, and as well as praying over them and physically teaching them, are ways of protecting them. That being said, my job as a parent is to get these little souls to the kingdom of God, back to the kingdom of God, right? In a place where God will be proud of their uh, their lives and what they chose to do with them, where they have lived their lives in such a way that they have magnified and glorified God to the best of their abilities, using the talents and the gifts that He gave them, and exercising other skills necessary to fulfill their missions while they're here on earth. And my number one job in doing that is teaching them. I will always, always choose what's best for my children over anything else, other than if it doesn't have to do with the father. My very next concern is what's best for my children, as with a lot of moms, a lot of parents in general. So the only time I will choose what's best for me is if that is absolutely, meaning no other choice, absolutely necessary in order for me to grow in such a way, or be better in such a way that I can then use that to serve my children further, to better serve them in being a parent to them. That is the only way. I'm not going to send my children to school because it's the default, the traditional school, right? Because that's the default. I'm not going to send them because I need my time, as a lot of people say. I'm not going to send them because it has to make sense. It has to be a reason for me to send my children to someone else, for them to have them so long in a day, right? That by the time they get to me, they're tired, they're worn out. And in most instances, they have even more work to do to then go to sleep, prepare for the next day with these people, and go to sleep and wake up the next day and do it all over again, 5 out of 7 days, right? And then one day is to rest and recoup and really just have my children one day a week and at night when they're sleeping. That has to make sense to me. And the other, like, another component of that that does not make sense to me is you don't even get to choose these people. You're not interviewing them. You're not telling them who they need to be and choosing the personality traits they need to be for. I mean, you guys know as well as anybody else knows, right? In any business, any work, any neighborhood, the atmosphere of the place is shaped by who's there. Well, if I have no choice in choosing who's the person or who's there, and I understand I cannot choose this for every aspect of their lives, but I'm going to hold on to them as long as I can. I'm going to, because 90% of their brains, right, is formed by the time they're 7, right? 95%. 75% by the time they're 3. And I think maybe 85 by the time they're 5, right? I need to hold on to my children as long as I can so I can teach them things like having a happy, positive attitude in life. We tried pre-K with my daughter, for example, and the atmosphere there, not just me, according to every mom I spoke with, was just so negative. And I remember sending my daughter to school every day, and I spoke with a friend who at that time we had already known each other previously, but we hadn't seen each other for a lot of years. We had been in second grade together, and I think third grade, this particular friend, and her mom was a elementary teacher when we were kids. And like her grandmother lived around the street from me when we were teens, and my mom kind of would go to her place of employment a lot when we were teenagers, and she got to know my mom somewhat. Um then we didn't see each other for a lot of years, and then we crossed paths later in life when our children were in pre-K together. And at this point, um, I remember telling her, like, I felt like I was failing my child by sending her there. And one of the biggest reasons was because the atmosphere was so negative. And my child was such a happy, upbeat person. And she was just like ready for the day and life and the world every day. And that atmosphere in the entire school, like from the office to, she had a pretty positive main teacher. Her the teacher's helper, I'm just being honest, to me she seemed mindless. She seemed like she had love for children that age, but she didn't seem to be, you know, and you're sending your children, back to what I was saying, you're sending your children to this environment, you know, and you don't know, people may present their best faces for the parent teacher conference, right? They may be, but you're sending them there, and all of this person's perspective, all of their ideologies, all of this subliminal teaching and learning is being poured into your children, more of their waking hours in a day than you have them for more months out of the year than not, right? And don't be a place that's in school year round, right? So I had to reel that back in and take a more hands-on approach with being able to choose who is pouring things into my children, like their concepts about money, their concepts about wealth. As I mentioned previously, I'm raising top one percenters. I don't need my children in an environment with people giving them a scarcity mindset of wealth, for example. I don't need my children, and how can you teach them something that you don't know, right? I don't need my children in an environment where they're subconsciously learning things like, or not learning things that they need to know, like how to self motivate, and that you're always expected to, and how to take initiative, and not this concept of when I get grown, I'll take control over my life. I'll do these things. No, you need to do them now. You're responsible for that now. To not mislead them and miseducate them and misguide them, misdirect them, right? I don't want them to be a part of that system where we all go to school and we think we're supposed to work for somebody else and get jobs for somebody else. I want my children to know and understand that they are expected, they're held to a higher standard, not just by me, but by God, to be the one giving jobs to those who need it and the families that need it. I want my children to know and understand that they are responsible for their education, what they learn and what they don't learn right now, right? And no matter who the teacher is and their teaching style, it is your responsibility to then ask the correct questions, form the right questions, ask the right questions, research and review what you've learned, research further missing components, and take control over what you learn, to develop your own opinions, to be leaders, to be free thinkers, to remain positive and gracious and with an attitude of gratitude, to remain humble to the Father for everything, to appreciate and take control over every aspect of life. And I need them with me to do that. That is the number one reason why I homeschool. Like, my children need to be with me. There's too much learning to do. Um, as mentioned previously, we homeschool rigorously with the traditional components of education in the traditional schooling system, like math, English, science, right? We even do foreign language. We do Spanish. They were, in addition to Spanish, doing Japanese at some point. We may go back to that soon. I'm not quite sure because it was a family friend who was offering that portion. However, um, um, to make them aware of the world, to give them different experiences, to do a ton of traveling so they can see a ton of other cultures, and develop a different awareness about life, right? So it's my job to do that, right? And I don't take that lightly, and I'm not one for wanting to give them to somebody else and say, here, you do it because I want my hours to myself in a day. Or here, you do this for them so I can go give my time to somebody else and have even less time with them, and let them see me working for somebody. No, we're going to figure this thing out. You're going to see me. You're going to know how to do it. And we're going to take this bull by the horns, and we gonna have a time, right? And in the end, the goal is to have the father proud of us, to say, job well done. You've lived up to your fullest potential. You've made me proud. And for them to be happy, y'all, listen, I cannot stress to you enough how my motivating factors of homeschool stem from wanting my children to truly be happy, not be okay, but be happy and fulfilled in life, and to know that there are no limits other than what God places on them and what they place on themselves, right? And He ain't placing too many, right? I want them to know that that they can literally go anywhere, do anything, be as ambitious as they want to be. I want that to be in them and carry the entire way through. And while I know that there are some school atmospheres that give a lot of or most of these components, and some, I've seen one private school that actually got close to, very, very close to meeting my expectations for my children. But like I said, at the end of the day, I don't have, all of these people that may come in or may not come in, all of this extra learning. Then we teach other things like, I don't want anybody else teaching my children Bible. Take it how you want, but I'm very particular and about what they learn, and I don't want them teaching them Bible. Um, I also teach them things like real estate law, life perspective, business. They learn business, they learn banking, they learn finance, they learn all of these things. And not just like, oh, let me show you this one thing. No, we literally sit and teach courses on this. Okay. Looks like my neck is bending. I'm trying to, it's the camera. So, but yeah, so then I have to kind of bend this way to try to make it straight, but we'll get through. But I want you guys to understand, like, I see parents who they have their many reasons for homeschooling, right? Oh, I want to make sure my children are safe. Of course I do. But like I said previously, I pray over them. I know they're fine, they're covered. I teach them. I know they're fine, they're covered, right? I'm not afraid to let my kids go. Um, I do make sure we do other things, like they go to the same parks, the same trampoline parks, to be around the same children. We are very, very aware and very, very intentional about them having their own phones. Another story for another day. Very strict about it, how we do things, though. But they have their own phones. They have their own friends that they meet, that they keep in contact with, that they grow with. We do have, like I said, now that mom that I mentioned has become my friend. And so they see other children who are homeschooled like them and that they're growing with. And they are a part of many, many activities like swim and not all at the same time, y'all, but swim and piano, and they've done art, and they've done Japanese, and they've done tumble, and they've done gymnastics, and now they're both girl and boy, 8 and 9 years old doing football, and we don't know, it might be basketball next. So I'm very, very intentional about having them around many, many other people, that church family, right? We travel a ton, um, and they get to do a lot of really awesome activities. And sometimes, if our schedules get thrown off, we might be schooling if we're traveling and we had a long trip somewhere and our sleep schedule's off and we find ourselves awake at 11 o'clock p.m. We're schooling at 11 o'clock p.m. If we if we are on a Sunday, we're schooling on a Sunday, right? And for those who are curious, my Sabbath is on a Saturday, right? And I don't always do everything I should do but I strive to. But just to put that out there for people who are like, oh, that's the Lord's Day. My Lord's Day is on a Saturday, right? Seventh day of the week. But anyway, so we school hard, and we have a lot of fun. And parenting is my number one thing that I am not taking lightly. If I get everything else wrong in the world, I'm not gonna get that wrong. God's gonna be able to tell me, okay, job well done on that one. And I want, yeah, so I don't desire or aim to have my children with me all the time, for those of you who are wondering. But I also, I'm okay with it. All right. So, yes, that is why we homeschool. Oh, let me just say this before we end. I do believe that the traditional education system, whether it be public school, private school, magnet school, charter school, um, what do you call those? The Montessori schools, right? Not so much Montessori, depending on what it is, but I think most of them have subscribed to the traditional way of doing things. I think most school systems train children. I do believe that the school system was initially started to prepare people for factory jobs. And I think a lot of that still is implanted in the very core of the system, the way they do things, right? Follow in line, follow the leader, right? Do as you're told, go along with the crowd, ask permission to think freely, cover your mouth, or I'm sorry, raise your hand when you are, I didn't mean to say cover your mouth. Yeah, I was thinking about the finger, like the be quiet, right? But don't speak unless you're spoken to. Just do what you're told mindset. I don't believe that is the most beneficial thing for my children. And as long as I can help it, not to each his own, um, but as long as I can help it, I'm going to keep my babies with me to educate them on through. And not just in my daughter, for those of you who are wondering, and my son as well. He's very, very, they both are very, very advanced, because, of course, ultimately because of the father and the gifts and the skills that he gave them, or the talents that he gave them, but also because of the hard work that mommy puts in, and the amount of time that I'm able to have them to put that work in. So we don't have any intentions on stopping anytime soon. If we do, it's because that's where life took us. But that's why I homeschool, for those of you who want to know why I homeschool, and if we're going to continue to do it, how long we're going to continue to do it. Be blessed.